course, it's easy to come up with good news after that gospel. The whole roof is falling in on us. And it's a mess. I mean, everything's really terrible. So, I mean, what is going on in the world, you know? And then Jesus seems to be lining it up in an absolutely incredible way. And you know, if that wasn't enough, and then the next sentence starts all over again. And then if that isn't enough, and then we hear another one. And then if that's not enough, one more thing happens. And it just all sounds like it's going to... Okay, you can say the word. This is church. It all sounds like it's going where? It doesn't it? You know, and yet we gather because we absolutely believe that everything is not only going to heaven, but our faith tells us everything is in heaven. We believe with so many traditions that God abides in our presence. Many manifestations or images of God's own manifestation. But the wonderful thing is, if we listen to all of them, and in the core of our Christian faith would have us hear it in Christ, He abides within us, among us. And in fact, as we listened to Jesus this week in one of the daily homilies, He made it very emphatic, and He said, the reign of God is within you. The reign of God is within you. God's realm, all of the fullness of life is within you. And then where would a gospel like that come from? Well, I'm not sure. In a moment, I'm sure that we're going to hear a lot of help from Lily. She knows. And then if she doesn't know, Jason knows. And if Jason doesn't know, Maura knows. So they're going to share a little bit too. So I don't have to know, okay? How's that? Off the hook. But I would like to stand before you as someone whom I admire. I don't know if you saw him on TV. It was in March, I believe, that he was elected as the new Pope of the Roman Communion. Do you remember it? Okay. We're waiting for a while, and then finally the white curtain is drawn aside. A little guy comes out like this. And I'm watching it on TV, and I thought, boy, that's a lot of time to just be watching people. One of the ancient words in all of our great religious traditions is to attendere. Who would think in a church that's messy, in a world that's falling apart, in a gospel that tells us it's all going to hell, that a new bishop of Rome would stand and look at us like each of us were a child of God, worthy of being gazed upon, treasured. And so he just stood there for a while longer. I thought, when's he going to get on with it, you know? He's got to have a message for us. You know, he's got something to say. I mean, big leaders and popes and everybody have words, right, Jeannie? We got stories from the past. I got Lincoln Diner's song I could sing here tonight, but I won't do that to you, okay? You know, we're in the world, and the world's crazy, so we need to be redeemed from the world. And then we have that. If we would look out at it, if we would attend to one another, if we would see each other with love. Well, those are words, but here's this new pope who's now done among others, many, many amazing things, and he just stood there and looked out at us. And then if you remember, the next thing he did was he simply said in a couple of words, could we be silent for a while? And then this huge square full of hundreds of thousands of people, at least as I watched the TV from a friend's home in California, seemed to just be very quiet. It already was, but it just settled down. It was almost like then the next most critical thing would happen in our world. Not only will we see each other, but we will begin to listen to one another. A real listening calls us to have some quiet with each other. A bit of a sense of silence. Not just in the air, not lack of words, but an openness of heart where we begin to drop our judgments and we sit here with great compassion, great tenderness. We begin to see each other in a deeper way. We are seeing each other now. We're with each other, we might say. And then very beautifully he asked that we might, it was really striking. It seems to me, as he had knelt for the silence, he Ben said, very like someone who might really mean it as a request or a desire, would you bless me? And after that moment of blessing that he asked from us, and then he said, now let us, or may I, bless you. And then he said, I think about then, he said, it's been a long day for all of us, and it's about pasta time, and I think we all ought to go home and have a good rest. You know, deep acknowledgement of the movement of the human world and life, and the things that would relieve us, you know, of the burden of sin or darkness or despair or the war or violence. It's in Luke's gospel. The reading from Luke's gospel is very important because the critical truth of it is that when we could have heard in the church, in the world, the business place, or our home, you better, or when we felt judged, we might not have known the core truth is that we've been redeemed. We have a God who loves us, poured out his life for us, and wants us to know that about ourselves. Well, what helps that happen? When someone looks upon us, as that great song goes, with the eyes of love. Simply a wholehearted, whole-bodied gesture. And then invites us to listen and take it in, and then invites us, would you bless me, and then shares a blessing with each other. And so simply taking it forward and passing it on to Lily it's a Franciscan movement we hear, so thank God he took the name. He took the right name, didn't he? But what a wonderful Jesuit who understands discernment, and that's really what we've been doing this afternoon. It's another word. It comes from Ignatius, but we're involved in a discernment of hearts. We're taking time to hear scripture passages, allow our imaginations to come alive, and letting traditions come together. I mean, people kid about it, but you think if the Jesuits and Franciscans come together, what else could happen in the world, you know? And you know, we think of different places where we come together from. We would think of differences, and I think today, maybe with the floor and other images we know, we come together with gifted individuality. Blessedness of just the way you are. That's another great song. St. Clare of Assisi, strikingly wonderful woman, invites us into 4 similar practices. With the Pope, I'm struck, and I've been writing about it. I really love it. He does attend to us. He sees us. He looks at us. He takes us in, we might say. And the next movement in silence is just that. Clare says to gaze upon the cross, to gaze upon the cross, to gaze upon the one. Not so much upon, I might say, but it's true right there, the image of suffering. But in the cross that she was gazing upon is a Christ rising from the tomb. It's life over death. It's the world of Luke's gospel that has us listen to hope, not in the background but the foreground, what sounds like only a tumultuous and violent gospel today. But it takes deep listening to hear that in our lives, doesn't it? And then a courageous voice to speak to that sort of hope. But we gaze upon it, as Clare said to us, and then we consider it. So we move to that place of silent listening. And then going further, she tells us to contemplate, which is to let the wholeness happen. To let the wholeness of life take us over when it feels broken. When war seems like the only thing that's happening. When our negativity, or our anger, or our own violence can just predominate, we can lose hope in ourselves. You know, there's this beautiful contemplative reality that it isn't all that. It's all this. It takes gazing upon, considering, contemplating, and then finally, we don't get off the hook. I mean, the Pope was there. He blessed us. He didn't hide out. You know, he wanted good news to go out to the world. And Clare does too. And she says, and now imitate. Now imitate. Let the one who has infused you with love and life, let the real namaste that is within you, the adoring and recognizing, the reverencing of life within others, let that take over the world. Practice that. Imitate that. Let that be a habit, a way of being. Now, I wish I were good at that. I'm not. So that's why I'm here today, you know? I'm here to practice. And I'm here to receive your vision, the willingness to gaze upon me with loving kindness, and to reflect it back to you. To have sat in the silence we did today, and also the conversations so wonderfully shared. And to have sought, as I do right now, your blessing upon me, and upon Joe and those of us who live on the land we call the mountain. Because we often say, and this is This afternoon, this evening is such a great statement. And Joe Flanagan, we've lived it for a long time, and the students down with us too. The mountain isn't only on the mountain. You two got lost going there, but you showed up anyway. And yet, as I got to know you from your last visit, now this one, back in the family and time of experience, you've always been there. We recognize it when we see it. And we see and believe, and that we live and proclaim. The hope that comes through all of the terribleness of the world. It's terrible to see. It's wonderful to believe. And it's essential that we proclaim what we're experiencing here today. Lily, welcome you to share your